That's right, it's your boy. Back with another one. Today, we are creating the ultimate Itachi of the Sharingan build in Baldur's Gate 3. Itachi is a shinobi from the Naruto universe with an extremely tragic story who also happens to have some of the most badass abilities in the entire series. He starts young as a prodigy, easily surpassing those in his age group and even his elders. He was recruited into the Anbu at only age 11, which is basically a secret shinobi group that carry out some pretty dark tasks. As the Uchiha clan were forming a coup against the village with no way of reversing their decision, in order to protect his younger brother Sasuke and to not let the village be destroyed, Itachi took it upon himself to slaughter the entire Uchiha clan except for Sasuke, defecting from the village and becoming a rogue shinobi in the process. He joined the Akatsuki and would work as a spy to send intel back to the village's leader, the third Hokage. That is a very basic and skimmed over summary, but I hope I painted a decent picture of Itachi's backstory for you. Shinobi in the Naruto universe can utilize chakra and perform all types of jutsus ranging from illusions to elemental dragons and anything in between you can really think of, which actually translates pretty well into Baldur's Gate, albeit with limitations and some pretty strong headcanon. This is probably one of my most fun builds to date, at least in my own personal experience, and I highly recommend creating a Sasuke or Kisame to go with it, as it makes role-playing absolutely perfect. Do note that I do have a Sasuke build over on the Patreon. If you'd like a detailed overview in written format, including the full build and gear for each act, consider heading over there, where you will find this build, my previous builds, and new builds every week. Link in the description, and more on that at the end of the video. Welcome to Purge Evil. Thank you for stopping by. Let's get into it. Character creation in level 1. First things first, the race we will take is full wood elf. This is slightly better than half wood elf for the reason of perception proficiency. The biggest downside is that I don't like any of the faces for Itachi, and one or two of the half elf faces fit much better in my opinion. Do with that information what you will, maybe even download a mod, but do note that the weapon proficiency difference between the two races are non-applicable to this build. Aside from perception, as a wood elf, we gain stealth proficiency and a permanent 1.5 meter movement speed bonus, of which this build will have an insane amount of considering gear and long strata. As an elf, we also gain Fey ancestry, which actually fits having the Sharingan quite well, as you are immune to sleep and have advantage against being charmed, i.e. genjutsu, which absolutely does not work against Itachi, so it just fits even more. For the first 3 levels, you have 2 options, Shadow Monk or Rogue. Shadow Monk looks good on the surface, but we won't be able to take it to level 7 for Shadow Step, seeing as how we need Wizard 7 for Tsukuyomi. While the benefits provided are useful, I find the sneak attack to be a bit more beneficial, especially in the early game, as well as gaining extra spell slots. Furthermore, the extra proficiencies and dialogue flavor from Rogue feel much better for role-playing Itachi than Monk. Gloomstalker is a decent option, but I would still argue that Rogue has much better flavor when relating to Itachi. Pass Without Trace is a great spell to have, but just have someone else use it. Take Criminal for your background. I don't think I need to say more about this one, but aside from flavor, we also get buffs to our deception and stealth skills. With that being said, and with us selecting Rogue, that now means we can select 4 skill proficiencies and double 2 of them. Now for this build, I will actually recommend skills, and this might be the first build where I do, which is kind of interesting in its own right, but by selecting the right skills, playing as Itachi is going to feel much more natural and badass. With this, we will take acrobatics, of course, then investigation and insight, as Itachi was essentially a double agent or spy, if you will, and intimidation, as we all know what this man is capable of just by looking at you. For the expertise, double up on stealth and deception. As a rogue, we also gain the aforementioned sneak attack, which you can make once per turn if you have advantage against a target, or that target is adjacent to an ally, and will deal an extra 1d6 physical damage and 2d6 at level 3. For our stats, set strength to 8 as we don't need it, and Itachi may not be the most physically strong fighter, especially with his illness. Dexterity at 16, as he still is extremely nimble and quick. Constitution at 15, and this will later be raised to 16 to maintain our genjutsu. Intelligence at 16 to make our jutsu more powerful and more likely to hit, wisdom at 10, and it would be nice to have more of this, but we are limited, charisma at 8 as we don't need it. Itachi tends to brood, and with our deception proficiency and the friends cantrip later on, we should have no problem fooling the enemy.
Level 2.
At Rogue level 2, we unlock bonus action versions of Dash, Hide, and Disengage, of which you will be using all quite often. I strongly recommend making your attack first and then hiding afterwards, and try to keep that in a loop so you almost always remain hidden and free from incoming damage.
Level 3.
Moving on to Rogue 3, we unlock our subclass and the ability to begin using our jutsu. Here, in order to gain our first spell slots, that's right, we will take Arcane Trickster. This might just be the most unpopular subclass in the entire game, right next to Trickery Domain, and that's because its main draw is usually the Mage Hand Ledger Domain. This ability is still pretty bugged, but it can do some different things. Really, it's invisible and lasts permanently instead of the standard 10 turns. The true reason for taking this subclass is so we can gain a level 5 spell slot by the end of the build and gain access to jutsu before multi-classing, while having the beauty of cunning actions and the sneak attack, which now deals 2d6 damage at this level. This option vastly outshines trying to take Shadow Monk or even Gloomstalker when building Itachi of the Sharingan. For our cantrips, first we will take Firebolt as the basic Uchiha Fire Jutsu, which deals 1d10 fire damage, 2d10 at level 5, and up to 3d10 by level 10, a decent damage dealer to finish off an enemy, and a great utility for setting things on fire or creating steam. Next, we will take Minor Illusion as a standard clone jutsu to distract enemies and redirect their attention. You can also remain hidden when casting it, and can also cast it while silenced. Moving on to our spells, we have our first Genjutsu, which is actually one of the best control spells in the entire game, with Tasha's Hideous Laughter. This will lock the target prone in a fit of laughter, essentially incapacitating them, leaving them vulnerable to attacks. They do, however, have a chance to escape the Genjutsu when taking damage. We won't take any of the other 3 options as they are heavily outclassed by Tasha's Hideous Laughter alone, so instead we will take Disguise Self for our transformation jutsu to further the shinobi flavor of Itachi. This simply allows you to alter your appearance to that of any playable race. For our expanded spell, my favorite choice to take first is Magic Missile, which can be flavored as Itachi's famous Shuriken Jutsu, which he is extremely proficient with and can even hit targets without a direct line of sight. This fires 3 missiles that can be directed anywhere, even around corners, and deals 1d4 plus 1 force damage per missile. This spell is guaranteed to hit, and upcasting increases the missiles by 1 for each level. Truly one of the best spells to finish multiple targets at once, or even just deal some decent guaranteed damage. Ultimate flavor nonetheless.
Level 4.
Here at level 4, Itachi grows stronger and the Tadpole's block on the Sharingan has gotten weaker, allowing Itachi to begin to utilize more of his jutsu and prowess. This is where we will multi-class into Wizard. First of all, we get Arcane Recovery, which is an ability to use out of combat that simply allows you to restore spell slots equal to the amount of charges used. Next, we have our cantrips, and first we will take Friends. This can be flavored as some type of genjutsu, or simply just Itachi's ability to infiltrate and deceive as a spy. This gives you advantage on charisma checks and is mainly used inside of dialogue. It does require concentration though, so make sure you're not concentrating on something else more important before popping this in the dialogue screen. Next, we have Ray of Frost, as Itachi is not only versed in fire style, he's also quite proficient with water style and even wind style, though we won't get into that last one much, if at all. Ray of Frost deals 1d8 cold damage and reduces the target's movement speed by 3 meters for 1 turn. The damage buffs to 2d8 at level 5 and 3d8 at level 10. Reminder that cold damage is doubled against wet targets, which is what I really like to use the Mage Hand for, is to throw things like water bottles or even grease. For our final cantrip, we will take Blade Ward as a backup just in case we know we're about to take damage for any reason. This can be headcanon as a small piece of Susanoo, considering Itachi can't fully utilize his abilities yet due to the Tadpole's block. Blade Ward is a very good cantrip to have nonetheless, having damage from physical sources for 2 turns. This is because Itachi cannot use his Mangekyo hardly at all yet, once again due to the Tadpole, but as we saw in the War arc, Uchiha are technically capable capable of using their Susanoo without their eyes. Moving on to spells, we have another Sharingan ability with Shield, which allows Itachi to read his opponent's attack just before they make it and increase his AC by 5, allowing him to potentially dodge the attack. Shield also makes you immune to magic missile and lasts until the start of your next turn, a must-have spell for pretty much any caster. Next, we have Long Strada and Enhanced Leap to further Itachi's agility as a shinobi. Let's also not forget that reanimated Itachi was able to match the speed of KCM Naruto, which is faster than the Raikage. What the f- Long Strider lasts until long rest and increase your movement speed by 3 meters. You can also cast this on your allies and will not expend spell slots outside of combat as it is a ritual. Make sure to buff with this at the start of every day. Enhanced Leap because as a ninja, and especially those who were part of the Anbu like Itachi, this one is a no-brainer for infiltration, repositioning, or even making a tactical retreat. Enhanced Leap triples your jump distance and lasts for 10 turns. Next on our list, we have Chromatic Orb for more elemental style jutsu. And being Itachi, you're only allowed to use fire, cold, and I'll let thunder slide since it can kind of represent wind. Aside from thunder, the fire and cold orbs will leave surfaces and deal 2d8 damage of the respective element and can be upcasted. Burning Hands for more fire style jutsu, dealing 3d6 fire damage and a 5-meter cone AoE. I like this spell particularly for finishing groups of enemies. This can be upcasted and comes with a dex save that enemies must make in order to have the damage. Finally, for our last spell at level 4, we will take Ice Knife, flavored as a water style jutsu imbued into a thrown shuriken or kunai. This deals 1d10 piercing damage to the target and explodes, dealing an additional 2d6 cold damage in a 2-meter radius, causing creatures to fall prone and halving their movement speed. For more jutsu, some level 1 spells to learn from scrolls as Itachi are Mage Armor, Fog Cloud, and Charm Person.
Level 5.
Moving on to level 5, we unlock level 2 spell slots, of which we will gain all of our necessary level 2 spells during the level up process, so no need for scrolls here. We also unlock our subclass, which will of course be none other than Enchantment. Here, we can truly begin to utilize the Sharingan with our second genjutsu of the build, Hypnotic Gaze. This charms and incapacitates a target for 2 turns within melee distance and can be maintained on your turn to extend its duration. It ends upon taking damage, but what makes this particularly powerful aside from being able to extend it is the fact that it does not require concentration, which is just absolutely insane. Use this to lock down a powerful enemy while you and your party deal with the rest or even use it to flee. Being Itachi, you will make good use of this one. The biggest downside to this is that it can only be used once per long rest, so be sure to make it count. For our spells, we have 2 more rituals to take. First, we will have Featherfall, which gives you and allies within 5 meters immunity to falling damage for 10 turns. And second, we have Find Familiar, which you don't have to take technically, but it fits Itachi as we can summon the Raven, which can be flavored as one of Itachi's crows.
Level 6.
Here at level 6, we will dip back into our rogue for a feat to gain a well-needed ability improvement to increase our intelligence to 18. In 2 levels, we will gain another feat to increase our constitution, so don't worry about that too much, as by this time you should already have advantage on constitution saving throws with Minthara's armor, but more on that in the gear section. We also have a spell to select here, which is rather unimportant, but I selected Color Spray for shinobi reasons. This can be flavored as a ninja tool to blind opponents in a 5-meter cone AoE up to a combined 33 HP. You can also upcast this to increase the targets by 1 and the total HP by 11 per level.
Level 7.
Moving on to level 7, we switch back over to Wizard for the remainder of the build. Here we have 2 beautiful spells to take for Itachi. First, we of course will take Scorching Ray to act as a more powerful fire style jutsu for Itachi to utilize, firing 3 rays and dealing 2d12 fire damage each. You can target separate creatures, so this almost has the same utility as Magic Missile in that sense, though it isn't guaranteed to hit. Upcasting adds 1 ray per level, definitely one of my favorite spells. Next, we will take the absolutely busted Hold Person. This can be flavored as another genjutsu to lock an opponent in place, disabling them from moving or taking actions, while also making every attack within 3 meters against them have advantage and guaranteed to be a critical hit. Upcasting adds another target per level, and this is one of those spells that you will be able to use efficiently throughout the entire game when necessary. For level 2 jutsu from scrolls, learn invisibility and see invisibility.
Level 8.
Here at Wizard 4, we have our second feat, of which it is a no-brainer to take Resilient Constitution, as we will soon be unleashing the true power of the Mangekyo Sharingan and the Uchiha clan. This will increase our Constitution to 16, as well as giving us Constitution proficiency, tremendously bolstering our ability to maintain concentration. It is extremely hard to escape Itachi's genjutsu, and this will help to reflect that, along with some gear of course. We also gain our first level 3 spell slots, and the only level 3 spell I recommend learning from a scroll is Fear, as we won't be taking that through leveling, but it is a flavorful genjutsu nonetheless. Keep in mind that you can really learn most spells we take from scrolls, but I cannot take into account when and where you will find these scrolls throughout the game, nor will I try, as this video would never likely see the light of day. Moving on, we have a cantrip and 2 spells to choose, all of which will be shinobi techniques. For the cantrip, Poison Spray is our best option, seeing as how it can be flavored to be yet another ninja tool designed to poison foes. Though this cantrip doesn't actually poison anyone, it does however deal 2d12 poison damage by this point in the game, and in 2 levels at level 10 will deal 3d12 damage, which is pretty decent. For the first spell, make sure to take Misty Step, as we have already described how fast Itachi actually can be, so this just makes sense as we can instantly travel to any space we can see within 18 meters. Next, we will take Mirror Image, which is Itachi's shadow clone jutsu, creating 3 duplicates of himself to distract his enemies, increasing his AC by 3 for each clone, making it highly likely for him to dodge incoming attacks. When this happens, 1 clone will disappear, just like in Naruto itself when a clone is damaged. The shadow clones can last for up to 10 turns and do not require concentration, making this a perfect spell for Itachi.
Level 9.
Moving on to Wizard 5, we gain another huge boost in power by further suppressing the tadpole and unlocking the ability to use the Uchiha clan's ultimate fireball jutsu and another extremely powerful genjutsu. First, Fireball. This is many people's favorite damage spell, as it is only a level 3 spell that deals a massive 8d6 fire damage within a 4 meter radius. Upcasting grants a bonus 1d6 per level, and if you haven't used this spell yet, you are in for a treat. Truly one of the most satisfying spells to launch at a group of enemies. Next up, we have another genjutsu, this one being even more powerful than the previous. Hypnotic Pattern hypnotizes all creatures in a 9 meter radius, preventing them from moving or taking actions, and making this one of the most busted control spells in the entire game. It only lasts for 2 turns, but the utility of incapacitating an entire group of enemies cannot and will not be ignored. Note that damage, shoving, and helping will remove the hypnosis from that creature.
Level 10.
Moving on to level 10, we have another subclass feature and a couple more utility spells. First, we now have Instinctive Charm, a Sharingan ability to counter an attack and place them under a short, low-level genjutsu. When an enemy attacks you, you can use a reaction to charm them, which will cause them to stop attacking you and attack a new target if possible. Once a target has been charmed this way, they cannot be charmed again this way until after long rest, if they're still alive. For our first spell, Counterspell is another spell that we can flavor as an ability of the Sharingan. This can be headcanoned as a quick genjutsu to stop an enemy from casting a spell, or even Itachi copying the enemy's spell to counter with it and nullify it like the Sharingan allows users to do in the series. Counterspell is a reaction that you can use when an enemy casts a spell to nullify it. If the spell is 4th level or above, you must succeed a check in order to succeed in nullifying it. For our second spell, we will take Haste, as it truly is one of the ability of all time. Use this when necessary, and keep in mind when you have it active that it requires concentration, so don't try any genjutsu or you will become lethargic immediately.
Level 11.
Moving on to level 11 Wizard 7, we have finally pushed through the tadpole's barrier enough to regain the use of our Mangekyo Sharingan. First, one of Itachi's signature jutsu. This spell creates a 36 meter wall of fire that deals 5d8 fire damage on cast in each turn following to any creatures caught inside or within 3 meters of it. Interestingly, casting this does not break stealth and can be upcasted for a bonus 1d8 damage per level. Usually these flames would burn forever, but that's just not possible due to the tadpole's existence. It will, however, last for 10 turns so long as you maintain concentration. Next up, we have the goated, the ultimate Tsukuyomi. With this, you haunt a creature with its worst nightmares, or really whatever you want it to see. Itachi has used this ability at least one time to project a happy life on his dying love interest, not here though. Tsukuyomi deals 4d10 psychic damage per turn for 10 turns and renders the affected creature immobile with disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. This can also be upcasted for a bonus 1d10 damage per level.
Level 12.
For our last level, we have Wizard 8, which unlocks our third feat, being ability improvement, to cap our intelligence at 20. We also gain a level 5 spell slot for upcasting and learning from scrolls, of which I recommend learning Hold Monster and Curriculum of Strategy, Artistry of War, which is a perfect ability to flavor as more shuriken jutsu. For our spells, Itachi has overcome the tadpole to the fullest extent possible, allowing him to finally utilize his Susanoo. For the Yata Mirror, we of course have to take Autoluke's Resilient Sphere. This encloses a target in a sphere for 3 turns and blocks all incoming and outgoing damage at the cost of having movement speed. The true ultimate protection of Itachi's Susanoo. For the Totsuka Blade, our final spell will of course be none other than Banishment, which like the blade, banishes a creature to another realm of existence. Now, due to the tadpole still having a little bit of influence, the creature only stays banished for 2 turns, but that's more than enough time for Itachi and team to take out the remaining threats, so the creature returns to a gank.
Gear.
As a shinobi, you are mainly going to want to look for gear that helps you sneak, but in the case of Itachi, we also want to look out for gear that can bolster our jutsu. As a quick reminder, I do have a detailed list of every piece of gear throughout each act located over on the Patreon, link in the description. To go over this list would take way too much time, so as usual, I will go over the main pieces of gear that I will recommend throughout the game.
Chest.
The first piece of armor you'll want to grab is the Spider Silk armor from Minthara. This is crucial as it gives us an early way to have advantage on our concentration checks, which is Genjutsu. There are a few pieces in Act 2 that will do nicely, but by Act 3, you're going to want to wear one of 2 robes, no more light armor. First option we have is Robe of Supreme Defenses, which is particularly powerful as it adds your spellcasting modifier to saving throws while concentrating, which we will almost always be doing. This is an absolutely insane buff that will pretty much cause you to never break concentration. Our other option is of course the Robe of the Weave, which has +2 AC and a solid +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC, which is the stat that makes your spells more likely to succeed in the first place. Furthermore, wearing this, Itachi regains 1d6 HP when he succeeds a saving throw against a spell, which is basically all of them.
Head.
The Spell Shade Circlet is especially useful early on as it gives Itachi a +1 bonus to spell save DC while obscured, which will be often. In Act 2, you'll want to make sure to grab the Hat of Fire Acuity, which whenever you deal fire damage, buffs you with Arcane Acuity for 2 turns in the stacks. This will give you a bonus +1 to spell attack rolls and spell save DC for every turn remaining, which is crazy. There is a maximum of a 10 turn stack and the duration is reduced by 2 whenever you take damage. In Act 3, you could potentially swap this out for the more reliable but not as powerful Hood of the Weave, which gives you a solid +2 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC.
Gloves.
There are many gloves to choose from for this build, like Fleet Fingers and Gloves of Baneful Striking, but the first pair I will really recommend is the Daredevil Gloves, which adds a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and allows you to cast ranged spells in melee. Next, we have the Brain Drain Gloves, which are disgusting for Itachi when we have Tsukuyomi, which will just destroy them and their psyche even further. Whenever you deal psychic damage, inflict 2 turns of mental fatigue, which stacks up to 7 times. This debuffs their wisdom, intelligence, and charisma while also dealing 1d4 psychic damage when the stack reaches 5. In Act 3, for our final gloves, we have to take the Cerebral Citadel Gloves, which essentially gives Itachi Bless for 3 turns whenever he charms or frightens a creature, which can be nearly every turn. These gloves are found under the Elf Song Tavern. Boots. Moving on to boots, I will of course recommend the Disintegrating Nightwalkers, at least up until you acquire the Boots of Arcane Bolstering in Act 2. Whenever you dash, which we have as a bonus action, you gain 2 turns of Arcane Charge, which, while threatened, makes you deal +2 bonus damage with spells, and this even applies to each missile of things like Magic Missile or Scorching Ray. A decent alternative if you have another character using the Nightwalkers.
Cloak.
At the beginning of Act 2, you will immediately want to acquire the Cloak of Protection, which gives a +1 bonus to AC and saving throws. Wear this up until Act 3, where you will get the Cloak of the Weave. This, similar to its set, gives a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC, further ensuring Itachi's attacks never miss or fail. It also gives you a short rest passive with Absorb Elements, which causes you to take half damage from an elemental attack and deal a bonus 1d6 damage of that element on your next attack.
Amulet.
As a quick note, and with all caster classes, I recommend all amulets that allow you to gain or regain spell slots. In Act 1, my favorite amulet for Itachi is Psychic Spark, which causes you to shoot an additional missile whenever you cast Magic Missile and always gives you a free use of the spell once per long rest. This can be swapped out with the Amulet of Greater Health in Act 3.
Rings.
There are way too many rings that Itachi can utilize, but the most important ring of Act 1 is the Ring of Protection, which, like the Cloak, gives a +1 bonus to AC and saving throws. Look out for rings that grant invisibility, speed, or buff stealth. Strange Conduit Ring is also pretty nice. In Act 2, the Ring of Mental Inhibition will inflict 2 turns of mental fatigue on creatures who fail saves against your spells or actions. Ring of Shadows is also nice as it allows Itachi to cast Pass Without Trace, but this requires concentration, so should only be used for stealth missions and scouting when playing as Itachi of the Sharingan. Now, for the most important ring, Act 3 sees us acquiring the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, which is the ultimate ring for Itachi. Simply, after hitting a creature with a weapon attack, you can then cast an illusion or enchantment spell as a bonus action, i.e. Genjutsu. Absolutely perfect and actually kind of busted when you think about the possibilities.
Melee weapon.
I have 4 solid melee weapons to recommend for this build. 2 in Act 1 and 2 in Act 3. In Act 1, first, make sure to acquire the Ritual Dagger, which gives you Bless whenever you land an attack with it until the end of your next turn. It also comes with an action to take 1d4 slashing damage to gain Bless for a turn as well. Second, you of course want to acquire the Knife of the Undermountain King, truly one of the gear of all time. This is a short sword with a +2 enchantment that has advantage against obscured targets. It also reduces the number you need to crit by 1, and if you roll for 2 damage or less, you re-roll and take the highest result. In Act 3, first we will have a flavor weapon with Stillmaker, a simple yet cool looking +2 enchantment dagger that grants you the ability to cast Hold Person as a level 3 spell once per long rest. Do not overlook this, as this is extremely powerful and allows you to lock down 2 targets while your team obliterates them with crits. Finally, we have Rhapsody, which is a +1 enchantment dagger with a special stacking ability and has the chance to inflict bleeding when hitting a creature while hiding or invisible. It comes with Scarlet Remittance, which grants a bonus +1 to attack rolls, damage, and spell save DC for each enemy you kill up to a max of +3. You can then spend the stack to heal, guarantee a crit on your next attack, or give a creature disadvantage on saving throws against your next spell.
Ranged weapon.
Spell Thief is the most important ranged weapon to get with Itachi, as it regains a level 1 spell slot on a critical hit. This is found in Act 1 alongside the Bow of the Banshee, which has a +1 enchantment and has a 1d4 buff on rolls and damage against frightened creatures, while also having the chance to inflict frighten on a hit. Do not miss out on that one either. The buff applies to all weapons you're wielding, not just the bow. In Act 3, the Deadshot can be quite useful. This reduces the number you need to land a critical hit by 1, and it also doubles your proficiency bonus when rolling ranged attacks, making it more likely for you to hit on average. Itachi is one of the coolest and most badass characters in all of manga and anime, and I had an absolute blast creating this build. I truly hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to like to help out the channel and subscribe so as to not miss out on any future builds or content. I do have an Anbu version of Itachi I want to make and some more Naruto characters, but there's no guarantee they'll be turn into videos. So if you'd like access to those builds and more, or just want to support the channel, consider joining the Patreon, where you will find all of my previous and future builds in a fully detailed written format, including all gear for each act. Link in the description. I have several other benefits to offer, and I especially look forward to seeing you all in the Purge Evil Discord when that launches and we begin to turn Purge Evil into a true community. A huge thank you to all of my supporters that are actually turning this YouTube thing into something real for me. Thank you all so much, and if you, the viewer, have made it to this point, I just want to say thank you for stopping by, and until next time, Purge Evil.
Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah.